You are sitting in your living room right now, maybe scrolling on your phone or watching a screen. Somewhere nearby, there is a creature sleeping, curled up on a plush bed or sprawled out on the rug. It is twitching its paws as it chases phantom rabbits in its dreams. When it wakes up, it will look at you with eyes that seem to understand your moods. It reads your gestures and anticipates your next move. It is a predator, a member of the order Carnivora, equipped with jaws designed to crush bone. Yet, it waits for you to open a tin or pour kibble into a bowl. We take this profound interspecies alliance completely for granted. We assume that at some point, a clever ancestor wandered into the wilderness and found a wolf pup. We think they brought it back to the cave and trained it over generations to become a loyal companion. But that story, the one we have told ourselves for centuries, is almost certainly wrong. Consider the fact that dogs possess a specific facial muscle which allows them to raise their eyebrows. Wild wolves do not have this muscle because they did not need it. Dogs evolved it specifically to hack into the human nurturing response. It is a biological testament to a relationship built on deep mutual adaptation. To understand what happened, you have to leave your living room and step back into the biting cold. You are back in the Pleistocene epoch, roughly 30,000 years ago. You are standing on the mammoth steppe, a vast, unforgiving landscape of freezing winds and glaciers. Survival here is a brutal, full-time job. You are not the apex predator. You are a vulnerable, slow, hairless primate shivering in hides. The darkness beyond your firelight is filled with nightmares, cave lions, hyenas, and packs of gray wolves. These wolves are not pets. They are highly intelligent, coordinated killing machines. They view you either as a competitor for the same scarce meat or as prey. Every night, you hear them howling in the distance, a chilling reminder of your reality. You are sharing a hostile world with a rival that is faster, stronger, and superior to you. The psychological toll of this environment is immense. You are constantly looking over your shoulder, guarding your kills from scavengers. In this frozen, unforgiving theater of survival, the idea of reaching out to pet a wolf is a death sentence. So how did we bridge this impossible gap? How did a band of fragile, freezing hunter-gatherers turn a deadly apex competitor into a hunting partner, a guardian, and eventually a member of the family? Was it through brute force or some stroke of accidental genius where a lone hunter decided to adopt an orphan pup? The traditional narrative relies on human agency, painting our ancestors as the undisputed masters of the natural world, bending the wild to their whims. The truth is far more humbling and far more fascinating than the myth of human mastery over nature. We did not domesticate the wolf domesticated itself, and in doing so, it entered into a mutual evolutionary pact with humanity. This was not a story of humans capturing wild beasts and bending them to our will through dominance, whips, and cages. It was a story of parallel survival where the friendliest, boldest wolves realized that the strangest, most dangerous two-legged apes on the tundra were actually the key to surviving the Ice Age. We didn't conquer the wolf. We merged our ecological niches, creating a hybrid superpredator that would eventually conquer the globe. It was an alliance forged not in a laboratory or a training pen, but in the brutal calculus of caloric survival. The first phase of this alliance likely began not with hunting, but with garbage. Imagine a human campsite on the edge of a glacial valley. After a successful mammoth or bison butchery, there is a massive amount of waste left behind. Cracked bones, tough hides, and bloody scraps of meat that early humans simply could not consume or carry. For a wild wolf pack, approaching a human camp is incredibly dangerous. Humans throw rocks, shout, and thrust spears. But within any wolf population, there is natural variation in temperament. Some wolves are highly aggressive and deeply fearful, while others possess a slightly lower flight distance and a higher tolerance for stress. These bolder, less aggressive wolves realized that lingering just at the edge of the firelight meant access to a reliable, high-calorie food source without the immense energy expenditure and risk of chasing down dangerous megafauna. Over hundreds of generations, these scavengers began to self-select. The wolves that were too aggressive were killed or driven away by humans. The wolves that were too fearful starved or missed out on the easy calories. The ones that survived and reproduced were the ones that could tolerate human proximity. This is the survival of the friendliest, a biological mechanism where reduced aggression leads to a cascade of physical changes known as domestication syndrome. This syndrome, linked to neural crest cell deficits during embryonic development, resulted in floppier ears, shorter snouts, smaller teeth, and piebald coats, physically marking the divergence of the dog from the wolf. Scavenging at the edges of a camp only gets you so far. The true turning point happened out on the freezing steppe during the hunt. A fascinating ecological theory comes into play centered around the harsh winters of the Ice Age. Humans are omnivores, and our livers cannot process excessive amounts of lean protein. Without that, we risk a condition known as protein poisoning or rabbit starvation. During the brutal winter months, when fat and carbohydrates were scarce, human hunters often found themselves with an excess of lean meat from their kills. They physically could not consume it without becoming ill. Wolves, however, are hyper-carnivores. They can thrive on lean protein for months. Researchers have proposed that early humans began feeding this excess to camp-edge wolves. In return for this reliable winter food source, the wolves began to accompany humans. Humans have terrible senses of smell and hearing, and we are painfully slow. Wolves, on the other hand, are endurance runners that track trails over miles. Humans began to observe the movements of these wolves, using them as living radar. Conversely, wolves learned that humans possessed a terrifying superpower. A human with a spear or an atlatl can pierce a thick hide from a distance. Wolves would use their speed to harass, exhaust, and drive herds into dead ends, where human hunters were waiting in ambush. Neither species could have easily secured such massive yields alone. Together, they formed an unstoppable ecological syndicate. We can see the echoes of this ancient pact etched into the archaeological record and the very DNA of modern dogs, even if the timeline is fiercely debated. Sites like the Goyet Cave and Altai Mountains have yielded canid skulls. They date back over 30,000 years, showing shifts from wild Pleistocene wolves. Even more poignant is the burial site at Bon Oberkassel, dating 14,000 years ago. A puppy was carefully buried alongside two human adults, which is quite the sight. The animal suffered from a severe, prolonged case of canine distemper. It requires weeks of intensive, round-the-clock care to survive. The puppy lived for weeks, meaning the humans kept it warm and protected, nursing a sick animal that offered no immediate utilitarian value to the camp. Isotopic analysis reveals these dogs were eating the same diet as the humans, including marine fish and game, proving they were not just simple scavengers. They were active, cherished participants in the human food web. Genomic studies show modern dogs diverged from an extinct lineage of wolves. The wild wolves that first approached our camps no longer exist in original form. They evolved alongside us, their genetic legacy living on in the dogs in our homes. Beyond the calories and the hunting yields, this partnership fundamentally altered the daily intimate reality of human life. Imagine the psychological toll of living in the Ice Age, where every rustle in the dark could be a cave hyena. For the first time in human history, early hunter-gatherers could finally sleep deeply. The wolves, now proto-dogs, acted as a living, breathing alarm system. Their ears would prick up, Their low growls would rumble, and the camp was warned before a predator could strike. It was not just about security, it was about warmth. On nights when the temperature plummeted to lethal extremes, humans and dogs slept huddled together for heat. That is how the phrase three-dog night originated, from the necessity of sleeping with canines just to survive. Think about the vulnerability of human infants, the long years of childhood dependency that required constant vigilance. Having a canine sentinel meant mothers could forage, craft, and rest with a fraction of the usual stress. The dog became an extension of the family unit, an older sibling that never grew up, always watchful. In the quiet hours by the fire, humans would stroke their fur and the dogs would lean against human legs. This physical contact, and specifically the act of mutual eye contact, triggered the release of oxytocin in both species. This is the exact same neurochemical bonding loop that occurs between human mothers and their infants. It forged a biological bridge of love and trust that transcended mere utility. They became our confidants, our emotional anchors in a lonely, frozen world. They transformed the harshness of the Pleistocene into a shared, survivable experience. The obvious assumption is that humans were the sole beneficiaries, that we molded a wild animal into a tool for expansion. Evolution is a two-way street, and the reversal of this assumption is profound. The wolf shaped human evolution just as much as we shaped the dog. By taking over tracking and guarding, dogs allowed humans to travel lighter, further, and with less anxiety. The presence of dogs influenced our social structures, teaching us how to nurture across species lines. Some anthropologists argue this alliance is what allowed Homo sapiens to outcompete and replace the Neanderthals. Neanderthals were robust and adapted to the cold, yet they never formed this crucial interspecies bond. They hunted alone, relying solely on their physical strength and close quarters thrusting spears. Sapiens, armed with the cooperative hunting power of the wolf, became an unstoppable force. We did not just tame the wolf helped make us human. It expanded our cognitive empathy, altered our migratory patterns, and secured our place at the top of the food chain. Next time you look at the dog sleeping at your feet, remember you are not looking at a pet. You are looking at the survivor of an ancient Ice Age pact. You are looking at a creature whose ancestors walked out of the darkness to sit by our fires. They traded their wild, untamed freedom for a shared, enduring destiny. They helped us survive the monsters in the dark and carried our burdens across continents. In return, we gave them the world. When your dog looks up with those expressive eyes, it is renewing a contract tens of thousands of years old. If this journey into our ancient history changed how you see your friend, hit the like button, subscribe for more explorations into the strange, beautiful depths of human history. Let me know in the comments what ancient mystery we should uncover next.